samasta jana kalyane niratam karunamayam namami chinmayam devam sadgurum brahma vidvaram vasudeva sutam devam kamsa chanura mardhanam devaki paramanandam krishnam vande jagadgurum tvameva mata cha pita tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva vidya dravidam tvameva sarvam mama deva deva tvameva sarvam gurudeva deva. Hari Om. So here we are continuing the analysis of who I am or who am I. So that's a fundamental question. So the question involves an inquiry. It's not a repetition of who I am, and inquiry has to be done according to the scriptural pointers that are being pointed out. So it is a scriptural teaching, and use the teaching in the seat of meditation to contemplate on exactly in the direction that the scripture is pointing out. So that's what is required, is an inquiry, and that's what is being discussed here. And we are now going to just finished the verse 134. We are following Viveka Chudamani text, and in that is asking what is anatma, kosavanatma, paramah atma, what is paramatma or what is atma, and what is the difference between the two. After discussing what is anatma, the Acharya is now providing a elaborate description of what is Atma. Since Atma cannot be directly pointed out, these are indicative or meditative slokas. That's why we are going each sloka. So it contains essence of Upanishads, as the Viveka Chudamani is essence of Upanishads, and we are discussing from different Upanishads the Acharya is taking and explaining the pointers in the pointing in direction to discover what is Atma. So one has to discover using the scriptural statement as a means. So it's showing this is Atma. So one has to use mind, buddhi and intellect, vichara, and find out. It's not beyond the mind. You have to use the mind, but it's beyond the mind means it's not the mind, but that because how the mind is functioning. So I had to use the mind to think about it. So that's exactly what being pointed out. So we're now going to take the sloka 135. Jnata manoham kruti vikriyanam dehendriya prana kruta kriyanam ayognivat anuvartamano nacheshtate no vikaroti kinchana ayognivat anuvartamanaha. That's what ayognivat anuvartamano. So nacheshtate no vikaroti kinchana. So here is again pointing out jnata. This is knower of what? Manaha ahankrutihi vikriyanam. So it's a knower of everything. So mind is an instrument for me to know everything else. Without the mind, I cannot know. That's why in the deep sleep state, mind is folded. So therefore, there is no knowledge can take place in the deep sleep state. People say in the deep sleep state you are there, and that is consciousness, and one can see from there, one can gain. If that is so, everybody who goes to deep sleep become a jnani. So it's not the lack of experience of Atma, because it's pratibodha viditam matam. It is seen in every experience also. Without it, I cannot experience. Inert thing cannot experience anything. Only conscious entity can experience. So in every experience, it is reflected in some form. All I have to do is use the very experience to discover that because of which I am able to experience. And that is what is essentially manaha ahankruti. Mano vikriyanam and ahankruti vikriyanam. Mano vikriyanam means all the activities of the mind and its activities are also known. So mind is an instrument for me to know everything else, but mind also is an object for me to know. I know my mind. So because then mind becomes an object. So initially when I was studying into Vedantic, interested in Vedanta, I got hooked up into J. Krishnamurthy's philosophy, and there he was asking about, says, you are conditioned, all the people who know JK philosophy, says you are conditioned. So I am conditioned because you are able to think this way because of your tradition, culture, or brought up, you think in that way. Other fellow will have a different culture, but the truth is beyond anything, because you are conditioned to think, therefore you think it is. Some people say God is there because you are conditioned to think. Somebody will say conditioned to think there is no God, and he thinks that way. So your mental direction of thinking is conditioned. Looks very appealing. So what should I do in order to uncondition myself? So you have to uncondition myself. How do I uncondition myself? Then it says, don't ask, because if you ask and if you follow, then you are conditioning again in another way. So you are, instead of one conditioning, you are putting another conditioning. But what you want is unconditional mind. But how do I get it? That question cannot be asked because it's not a process. Then what am I supposed to do? Yes, agree with the condition. Then what am I supposed to do? There is a problem. It says, observe your mind. Now say, observe my mind. Now who is going to be observing my mind? Say, some people say, discover who you are. By who? By I am only I have to discover. So ego has to come to discover who is the ego. Because I am is again a local guy, has to investigate who I am. So no, find out who you are. Yes, I'm ready to find out. But what I should do? Discover who you are. Go beyond the mind. So who is going to be beyond the mind? It is again the mind. So this becomes a problem. It's like a circular arguments, and people don't understand what exactly it means. Therefore, Vedanta comes to our rescue. It says, yes, your mind is conditioned. That is true. Vedanta also says that what essentially vasanas means. You are conditioned because of your vasanas. Now, what should I do? You have to uncondition. That's also true. But how do I condition? Don't ask the question. This says no. You have to uncondition by process of yoga. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, upasana yoga is unconditioning the mind from the clutches of the vasanas. That is required. And once I do that, same mind, now I can also observe the mind. I can also observe operation of the mind. Mind is required as an instrument to know everything. But the mind is also can be an object of my knowledge. It's like wearing a glasses. When I'm looking at my glasses, then they're object of my knowledge. So glasses are there, I can see the glasses. But once I put the glasses and then I look through the glasses, the world around, then glasses become a part of me. Now I'm seeing everything. I don't see glasses there. Glasses already as a part of my eyesight, and I'm seeing every object now. In the same way, the mind is an instrument needed for me to transact with the world. So all operations through the mind only occur, that is through the vritti, that is through the thought process. And modification of the mind is called thought or vritti. So therefore, all its activities or mind is able to transact because it is Chaitanya Swarupa now. It is borrowed consciousness, and the borrowing is from the reflected consciousness. There is no other way. Original consciousness cannot be, original consciousness has nothing to do with any of this. So it is the conditioned consciousness, Chidabhasa, which has a wrong notions because of the mind thinks that I don't know, and therefore I don't know who I am, and therefore I take mind is myself and all other things are myself. So ignorance is in the mind, not in the Atma, not in Jivatma, not in Paramatma, but it is in the mind, and that mind needs to be re-educated that I am not the mind, and for that all Vikriyas and all that I had to observe as though standing apart. Who is going to stand apart? It's again the part of the mind has to stand apart and look at the mind, because there is no other instrument. Therefore, one has to be very careful in this analysis. That's why it is very subtle. So, Jnata, who is a Jnata? Knower. Who is a knower? Knower through the mind only, and knowing the mind also. That is what has to be. Both the subject-object duality is the substratum of that is to be known. That's why it is a subtle intellect. Where Viveka is, I need a very, very subtle discrimination, since they are always together, and I have to separate, not physically but cognitively I have to separate, and that's what is the process is. Jnata manoham kruti vikriyanam. So manaha ahankruti means ahankara, and vikriyanam, all the transactions at this level, at the mental level, and with the ego, I am doer, I am reader, I am this, I am that, all the operations with the notion that I am, all that is jnata, is known. Deha indriya prana kruti kriyanam, and deha indriya prana, all activities at that level, at the body level, at the sense level, and at the physiological function level, all activities. Therefore, in every seeing and hearing and touching, the expression of the Lord or expression of the Atma or Paramatma is essentially evident there. I can see, because of that only. I can hear. So in every hearing and seeing, I should see this truth. Means I should understand the presence of that. That is what is essentially involves the meditation. I told you the simple way of meditation is, I can, as you're looking at my hand, what you're looking is not the hand, but it's the light. It's the same way, whenever I see a thought or whenever I know something, I am knowing through the thought process, a vritti, and that is known only because of light of consciousness is getting illumined. Just as the light is getting illuminated, therefore I am seeing the hand. But shift the attention from the hand that is reflecting, but to the light itself that is getting reflected. The same way, by shift the attention not to the thought which is reflecting, but to that because of which I am able to know the thought. That's what it means by pratibodha viditam. It is evident in every knowledge, because the consciousness is getting reflected all the time. Only through the reflections only I can see the original. Just as an example, only through the mirror image I can see my face, because I cannot see the face otherwise, because subject cannot be objectified. So only through the mirror and looking at the pratibimbam, reflection, I say, yes, that is my face, but my face is not there. My face is here, and that's how the knowledge should be. So dehendriya prana kruti kriyanam. And he gives an example, which is one of the classical example of the Vedanta. Ayognivatu anuvartamanaha na cheshtati na vikaroti kinchana. Ayogni means ayaha, agni, ayaha means iron. Say there is an iron ball. Iron ball is a cast iron, it's a black iron, and the cast iron is very dark and it doesn't have any shining of its own, and it is cold, and when it is heated to high temperature, now it become an iron a ball, fire ball. Now where is the fire? Fire is pervading the whole iron, and in fact it is effulgent coming out because of that fire. And fire and iron are two as though different, because iron doesn't have the fire of its own. It is an external, but it's where is the iron? It is pervading everything, everywhere, and it is evident, and that's exactly what I see. The properties of the iron is not seen, but the properties of fire is known. It's hot, it's bright, it's brilliant, and you cannot touch it, it burns. All that are properties of the fire, nothing to do with the iron itself. But it is pervading the iron, make the iron hot, make the iron brilliant, and make the iron as though it is a ball of fire. So it is by itself is not doing, but very mere presence of an instrument in which it is burning, so itself is expressing through that, and that's what is essentially an analogy is provided. So I am Agnihi I am Agnivat Anuvartamanaha. It's as though it is an example like fireball. Anuvartam is as though it is essentially following the body, mind and intellect, is becoming active by the presence of that consciousness. But consciousness is as though activating it, but itself has nothing to do with itself. So the consciousness on Atma cannot do anything, because it is all pervading and infinite cannot do anything, because doing is only by a finite. So because action, karta, karma, kriya, karta is different from karma, karma is different from kriya, and karta, karma limits each other, and they cannot be infinite. So that which is the infinite cannot be a karta, but it as though activating the body, mind, intellect, deham, that's called anuvartamanaha. Na cheshtate na vikaroti kinchana. Even though modification is occurring to the iron ball, it becomes suddenly brilliant and able to become effulgent and also able to burn things by itself. The consciousness has nothing to do with it. It's only so, don't blame the consciousness. It says, akartaham, abhoktaham, ahamevaham avya. I'm never a doer nor an enjoyer. So once I have understood this, I'm not even a karta. So if I understood, then karma doesn't belong to me because I never done it. So in the past also I didn't do it, in the future also. Unnecessarily I took myself as a karta and therefore I am suffering the consequence of. So all these vasanas and all that have nothing to do with me also. That recognition comes only after going through. So that's why I gave a simple example of this 4 miles of running. So a fellow who had a chain, he went to his friend's house to show off his chain that wife he gave, and in the process, after talking half an hour, he came back and found out that he doesn't have a chain. So he ran 4 miles to his friend to see if he has left there, but friend would say, hey, you didn't leave it, you are in fact having it, because it's hidden, you cannot see. So he discovered the chain that he never lost. So he didn't have to run 4 miles. So if you ask, did he have to run 4 miles to discover that? Because he never lost it, so he didn't have to run. But if he didn't go all the way, his friend didn't show him, then he was searching all over and he was agitated and all that. Therefore 4 miles of running was helpful. So correct answer is 4 miles of running is necessary to discover that 4 miles of running is not necessary, because he is already possessing. So all the sadhanas and this meditation and everything, analysis is necessary to discover that all the sadhanas and meditations are not necessary, because I am all the time there. I am Nitya Mukta Swarupoham Ahamevaham Avya. I am eternally liberated. Even in the past also, I mistakenly took myself, I am bound, and therefore I lost that mistake. I realized that I am pure Atma, never an active. So even the karmas don't belong to me, vasanas don't belong to me, nothing belong to me. There is nothing, in fact, I am pure consciousness. And looking at this, it becomes my vibhuti, my glory only. See, that is the claim that I had to do, and that's what Krishna does in teaching the Arjuna. Maya tadamidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina mastani sarvabhutani daham tesha avastita. O Arjuna, I pervade this whole entire universe and in an unmanifested form, just like the fire is pervading the whole iron ball. And all beings are in me. So mastani sarvabhutani, all beings are raised in me and sustained by me, and they go back into me. So mayatatam idam sarvam, everything is mayatatam, is pervading by mayatatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina, in unmanifested form. Mastani sarvabhutani najaham tesha avastitaha. Their modifications and all that do not belong to me. So their karmas, vasanas, all those things, that 9 yards what we are discussing, life after life, are nothing to do with me. It's only my presence, and this is all coming. So in the next sloka he says, Najamastani bhutani. There are no really beings in me, because I am pure Satchidananda Swarupam. And that knowledge, I can take the role of the world, and also I can stand apart and look at this. So that both dual roles can be taken, and therefore whole universe is only my vibhuti. Life becomes a beautiful, because when looking from that, the whole becomes a vibhuti only. So nothing is really bad or good. It is the whole, occurring, just as electrons, protons, look at it. Hey, look at my glory. I can exist in the form of a delicious food, and also garbage also. That's all the electrons, protons, neutrons. But they are not affected by any of these modifications. So I am pure Satchidananda Swarupam, and that is I am pure existent consciousness, and I am nacheshtate na vikaroti kinchana. I am never undergo any modification, no creation, nothing of that. No activities of any kind in spite of the fact that in my presence all the activities are taking place. Everybody is able to act only because they are alive. And the life is coming from that reflected consciousness enlivening the matter. So all activities essentially due to that. At the same time, from that itself has nothing to do with any of this. This has to be clearly understood. So a Jnani acts, at the same time Jnani doesn't act. So while acting, he can remain as inactive and look at the operation of the body, mind, intellect. So one who sees that I am not an actor in spite of all the actions. So sarva karmani, all activities akartam, I am never an actor. That is the wisdom. So therefore he is not accountable for the actions, and whatever he does is not for selfish sake. If at all he does, it is for the beauty of the totality, glorifying the creation much more in the local level. And that's exactly what Mahatma is. Every Mahatma, whatever he does is for the Loka Kalyanam, for the benefit of the totality, and that's glorification of that. And that is, look at my glory, O Arjuna. Everything in this whole universe is pulsating because of me. So I have to go from that level, understanding I am thinking I am this body, mind, intellect. I have to see the presence of myself as a conscious existent principle in everything that I see, in every transaction I do, and every perception that I have. The whole world is nothing but my own glory only. I had to claim. You don't have to declare to others, but have to have a clear understanding what exactly means Atma Vidya, or what exactly means Atma. So that is what Atma is. So Kosavan Atma, what exactly is Atma, as is being explained. All these are meditative slokas. That's why we are going sloka by sloka, since this is a Upanishad Sara, and this is what essentially studying the Upanishad in the same way as studying the Viveka Chudamani also. With this, we'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.